What is up, football fans, UFL fans, but most importantly, Houston Roughnecks fans? Welcome to the Roughnecks Rundown. If this is your first episode, I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave a comment. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. You know, I'm always watching. Now, today we got a good episode. There's no real new news, but I think it's going to be really fun to dive in and really help Roughnecks fans get to know the defensive side of the ball of this team. So without further ado, let's do it.
I'm in the big leagues. Told him don't miss me. Hey, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh. Send it through quickly.
All right. So like I said, we're going to dive into the defensive side of the ball today. So episode 22 topics, full defensive breakdown. I'm going to go through each position on the defense. I'm going to talk about it, explain some of the guys that I'm excited about, just help you get to know the names and some of the faces. And then I'm going to predict the game one defensive starters, which could be controversial. But to preface, I am not a coach. I do not make any decisions. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of rotational guys. So it's not set in stone, but let's get into that. So we're going to start in the trenches and we're going to move back. Start front, move back. Now, the defensive ends, this is where you should be the most excited, especially about our offseason acquisitions. Defensive ends, Chris Odom, season 1 all USFL. He won Defensive Player of the Year. He led the USFL in sacks season 1, and then he went to the Browns. Now, if he had not torn his ACL in the preseason with the Browns, he was on track to make that roster. He would not be back in the spring league, I believe, if that injury had not happened. So he's back. He's got to prove his way back into the league. And this guy is going to be a star. Just watch. Chris Odom. Number 2, Ronheen Bingham. I got my notes here. 24 tackles, 4 sacks in the 2023 season of the USFL. He was on the sack leader board the entire season. He was always putting pressure on the quarterback. He's got great moves, especially finesse-wise. Then you move down, you have Isaiah Chambers, another returner. He and Ronheen Bingham were really the two big names, get after the quarterback kind of guy. Isaiah Chambers led the league in tackles for losses. He had a ridiculous amount of tackles. And on top of those tackles, he had 4.5 sacks. So Isaiah Chambers is a great player that we retained. Then we have Adam Rodriguez, the modern record holder for the sack record in the USFL. I've also interviewed him. Go check that out. He's a great guy, a very fun interview. But he's a guy, he was right behind Chris Odom all season 1 on the sack leaderboard. Then in season 2, he's on the sack leaderboard. They have a lackluster season altogether for the Stars, but he is still the star and he gets all USFL season 2. Adam Rodriguez is a great pickup for this defensive line. Those 4 names I've named already would be a great starting, rotational guys on the defensive end. Then we have Tim Bonner, last chance U-star. Great guy, great locker room dude. He was rotational last season. He was not active for a bunch of games, but the games that he got in there, he got after it, and he made the most of what he had. Then you have Jake Lava. He's a young guy. He's unproven. This is a dude who, when you have all these guys who are veterans, Jake Lava is going to be the guy who's taking it in like a sponge. He is looking to break out. He's looking to learn, and he's looking to try to get his way into the league. He's from a small school, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity for him. This is where he should be. Reggie Walker, another returning guy. He was a defensive player of the week. He was in a post-game press conference. If you look back on our YouTube channel to the press conferences, he was chosen to be the guy after the game after a win with Curtis Johnson because when he's on. Reggie Walker is a gamer. And then we have Bryson Young. Bryson Young is a great guy. He's a great guy to have. We do a lot on our defense. So our defense does a lot of zone. It does a lot of covering up coverages and covering up what exactly formation we're in. So it's a base 4-3, 4-2-5 defense, but he likes to have the guys on the outside linebacker, edge rushers, the Chris Odoms, the Ronheen Binghams. They are not just going to come at the quarterback, especially when they picked up Bryson Young in the dispersal draft. This is a guy who is going to rush the quarterback a lot because that's predominantly what he did at Oregon and when he was with the New Jersey Generals. But he can also step back and cover if need be. And so in a defense where you're trying to disguise coverages, when you're trying to not let them know who's coming on every play, to have a guy that you trust that can rush the quarterback well and can also drop back into coverage is a humongous just need. So that helps him a lot. Coming in, he was not a every down starter for the Generals, but he was a rotational guy. And I think the fact that he has the versatility to play outside linebacker, to rush, that really will help him in this camp battle. So those are your defensive ends. Probably the most exciting after the dispersal drafts. Absolutely love them. Now we move on to the defensive tackles. The defensive tackles also probably the second best position that we got at in the dispersal draft. We picked up Chris Odom in the offseason. We picked up Adam Rodriguez in the dispersal, Bryson Young. They're very exciting, but we got a lot of talent at defensive tackle, and it's crazy. I don't know how anybody expects to run up the middle on this defense. This is crazy. Toby Johnson, one of two-time All-USFL players. Him and J-Ron Jones, the offensive tackle for the Memphis Showboats, the only two guys that were All-USFL both seasons. Toby is humongous. He stuffs the hole. And he moves faster than people give him any credit for. It's crazy. So having Big Toby in there is monumental. Honestly, it's going to be super helpful when we're trying to shut the run down. In the USFL, you want to make the quarterback pass, right? You want them to throw the ball because when they throw the ball, like my grandpa said, I said it last episode, 3 things can happen when you throw the ball, and only 2 of them are good. So we're really trying to get them to throw the ball, and stopping the run is going to be very, very crucial. Having Toby Johnson is big in there. Then Keontae Shad, he's not as big as Toby, but what he does bring is sacks. This is a defensive tackle who can get at the quarterback. He had over 7 sacks last season at the defensive tackle position. Absolutely ridiculous. Then we have Reggie Howard Jr. He's another guy. He played with Keontae Shad the past season from the Breakers, got him in the dispersal draft. Another dude who's an absolute dog in the trenches. I heard he's kind of crazy. I heard that dude, he's screw loose kind of guy. You don't want to square up and line up across the line from him. So Reggie Howard, that's a dude to watch. I also believe he was All USFL season 1. So another All USFL nod. Keontae Shad, he got a nod on our UFM All USFL, but was not on the actual All USFL. Jeffrey Johnson, a guy that we drafted in the inaugural USFL college draft out of Oklahoma. Then he came in, he signed mid-season last season and became a starter almost immediately. He is great. That's a young guy who, he did not get the look coming out of the draft, signed quickly after the USFL college draft, which you weren't really expecting to get those players. You were hoping that those were players that you could get after that season, after that, if they didn't pan out in the draft. He came immediately because he said, I want to hone my skills, get that real game tape. And he came in and he looks good. That's a guy who is not on a lot of people's radars and probably should be. Jeffrey Johnson is a name to watch. Then you have Glenn Logan, the big defensive tackle, another get at the quarterback kind of guy coming out of LSU. This is a young dude. We got him in the super draft. That's a guy that's high energy, high motor. Probably not starter when we have the other names, but to have that kind of depth with Glenn Logan and Chigozie Inaruka, this is crazy. So then we have Chigozie Inaruka, who was on the team last year. He's out of Miami, the U, and UCLA. The dude is just a grind, put his nose to the grindstone kind of guy, a great guy to have in your locker room. Like I said, the depth that we have at defensive tackle is ridiculous. We're not going to keep all these guys. We can't, but every single one, if we release them, they will be picked up. I'm just saying that right now. Then we have Ethan Westbrooks. This is a guy that was drafted in the dispersal draft. Fun fact, he was actually our first pick in the divisional dispersal draft. So when we went into the dispersal draft to pick up USFL players, he was the first pick for the Houston Roughnecks. Quan Drake, the defensive line coach, he was the defensive line coach for the Michigan Panthers season 1 of the USFL. They got Ethan Westbrooks midway through the season. He was released by the Maulers, just wasn't a fit there. Came over to the Panthers, and he played there all last season and half of season 1. Quan Drake is very, very high on this guy. So he wanted to get him in there. He knew that he knows exactly what Coach Drake is gonna demand of his guys. He knows that he's willing to do it, and he knows that he's a great guy to have in the locker room. He won the Sportsman of the Year last year for the USFL. He's a great guy. I met him at the championship, and he was so nice. So to have a guy like that in the locker room means a lot more than people give it credit. You definitely care about the chemistry and the vibes. Let's just say vibes in the locker room. Ethan Westbrook is a great guy. Then, humongous pickup. Olive Sagapolu off of the number 1 USFL defense last year, the Pittsburgh Maulers. This dude, you can see him right there, number 94. Absolute dog, man. To get Olive to get Toby, to get Keontae, to have, rotational guys like, to call Reggie Howard, Jeffrey Johnson, and Ethan Westbrook's a rotational guy means that we are the most stacked defensive line in the league. That has to be the case because those are starters. On other teams in the USFL, XFL last season, those are starters. Crazy. How am I supposed to pick my starters out of this? Come on, man. But at the end, I'm going to do it. Now we move on and we go to the linebackers. Started at the defensive line, started in the trenches. We're moving back. Now, obviously, the linebacker everybody wants to talk about is Reuben Foster out of Alabama, first round draft pick. Dude had some problems and he ended up in the USFL and he's still him. I remember when we went to camp last season, me, Webb, Lowe, we were out there in Canton. And one of the first questions you want to ask, right? You say, how's Reuben? How's it going? Because they were about to play in the scrimmages. Training camp was almost about to be over. They were about to move out of the hotels. And they said, we were worried. We didn't know what we were going to get. Nobody's seen Reuben play in a couple of years. And he showed up and they said, he almost looks like he's in better shape than the last time we saw him in the NFL. That's what they said. Wow. Just wow. That's what Jaron Horton said. He said he might be in better shape. The dude came in. He was game ready day one. And I believe he's going to do that for this defense as well. He's also, people know him as the hard hitting, run up in the gaps, stop the run kind of guy. His pass protection, his pass coverage was great last season. Kiava Tizino is a great pass coverage guy, and Reuben Foster almost dropped into coverage more plays than he did. Games that he was in, obviously, Reuben was hurt a few games, but he probably would have been an all USFL if he had gotten to start all 10 games and then, the playoffs and championship. Dude's wild. Then we also have Kalen Tolson over there in the corner. That dude actually just chiseled out of marble. He is nothing but muscle, and he is fast. When you watched his pro day, when you look at his highlights at Illinois, the dude really moves like a specialist guy, moves like he's a wide receiver, corner, safety, and he really gets after it. I do believe that last year when the Gamblers beat the Birmingham Stallions, a lot of it was the fact that when Alex Magoo would try and improvise, move outside of the pocket, he had Kalen Tolson bearing down on him every single time, and that dude is wicked fast. He led the team in tackles. He's a guy that, spoiler alert, I think he's probably going to be a week one starter. He's got that dog in him, and it's surprising that he didn't get more NFL looks, that he wasn't a guy who ended up in preseason games. So that's interesting. Then we have Ace Ely. Ace Ely out of Georgia Tech. I am so high on this guy. It's crazy. And it just so happens that his nickname is also my nickname. I love it. Ace, love an ace. Gotta love it. Pocket aces. Oh, callback. This dude's a dog. He's crazy. Like I've said, he's the modern day honey badger. The dude just knows how to punch the ball out. He comes downhill. Man, it's the closest guy on this team to Reuben Foster, I think, that we have. A guy that can back up. He's fast. He's physical, and he can do the coverage. But when he comes downhill, it's scary. I think him and Reuben are just the hardest hitters that we have on this team. Maybe Manny Bunch as well. Manny hits like a truck. But we'll talk about Manny in a second. Ace Ely's a guy to watch, especially in camp. I cannot wait to see the highlights that they're posting. I can't wait to get out there and see it myself. Very excited. Then we have Gabriel Sewell Jr., a guy that we picked up in the divisional round from the Philadelphia Stars. He's a guy who's friends with Adam Rodriguez. They're actually best friends on the team. So that's going to be fun. I like having that chemistry between a linebacker and defensive end that we're going to have, who both will most likely have a good amount of playing time. Gabriel Sewell, he's another guy. When he comes downhill, he hits you hard. Now, he's not the fastest dude out there, but when you're watching his tape, nobody on the field is working harder. Nobody is getting to the ball with the aggression that Gabriel Sewell has. Very excited about him. Then we have one of my personal favorite players on the Gamblers last season, JT Tyler. JT Tyler not only had the most family I've ever seen at a game in the game against the Panthers in Michigan last season, not against the Panthers, against the Stars in Michigan last season. He had the most family there. But this is a dude that, coming out of Princeton, small school, Ivy League, people really looked at his size. They put a knock on him. They said he's not an NFL talent. He's not that guy. He came in. He just makes plays. The guy makes plays. When Adam Rodriguez got signed to the Gamblers, or now Roughnecks, I was talking to him a little bit, going over the defense, because he was asking me a couple questions about guys that we already had. And he said, what about linebackers? I said, obviously, everybody loves Reuben. Kalen Tolson is super fast and a dog. I said, and JT Tyler is wild. And he said, whoever number, can't remember what number it is, he said, that guy ate us up last season in that blowout. And I said, that was JT. Now, possibly because his entire family, all cousins, aunts, uncles were at that game. He showed out. But after that game, he really was a staple of the defense, a mainstay. People just don't talk about him enough. And I think that is disgusting. Now, we have Marvin Moody coming out of Tulane. This is a guy who has good size. He's a little bit older. Probably going to be like a veteran presence in that linebacker room. It feels like it's his last chance type of thing. You know, this is, if he can get back into the league, get back into the preseason, this is that chance. Who knows? And then the last guy on the linebackers we have is Isaiah Pryor. Now, I ported a couple shows ago, don't remember when it was, that Isaiah Pryor had told teammates he was going to retire. He has not shown up yet. You know, Paul Adams, the offensive lineman, the guard who had announced to teammates that he was going to retire, he did end up on the waived list for the UFL. So he's out of the league. He's retired from football. Isaiah Pryor also told people that he was retiring. He has not shown up on that list yet. He's not shown up on a transaction. So maybe he's still on the team. I'm not totally sure, but I'm not going to take him off. He's a guy who was on the team last year, played in Chris Wilson's defense. You know, that's always a good thing to have, especially going into camp when you're trying to help other guys get up to speed very quickly. So hopefully Isaiah is still on the team. I'm not sure. But also right now we can go into camp with 75 players and we have 78 technically. When you look at Nick Thorne's list, I love that list, man. I have it up like right now. So who knows? But let's move on. We have two more position groups to go through. Isn't that crazy? Oh, so many players. Corners. Jeremiah Johnson, JJ Johnson. This is a guy you can see right there. He was a Houston Roughneck in the XFL 2020. He had interceptions. He's never afraid to stick his nose in there. Possibly a little bit of trouble with the deep ball getting on later into his career, but that's okay because we have a lot of young guys. JJ, he went from Houston Roughnecks to 2 years with the Gamblers, starter all those years, and then now he's back as a Roughneck. Gotta love him. He started all last season. Like I said, possibly just making sure that he's not letting people behind him on the deep ball. That's basically the only knock I ever have on him. I think JJ is a great cover guy, great locker room guy, and a great dude in general. Now, you have Nick Grant. This is another guy. He started some games last season. He knows the system. He knows our defensive backs coach. You know, we have Shaggy, the defensive backs assistant coach. We have Brian Maxey. I think they like him. Nick Grant is a good guy. He's a good cover dude. Just happy to have him. Now, Diane Lake, I've mentioned this dude a lot because he's like the Gambler success story from last year. After game one, you know, he got burned on a long touchdown to Joe Walker, which it's Joe Walker. You can't knock somebody for getting burned by somebody who literally just burns dudes. But then after that, he never had another touchdown scored on him. He had the highest PFF grade, or third highest PFF grade on the team at the end of the season, accumulatively. Great guy out of BYU. You know, Diane Lake, he was listed as a safety in BYU, came in, he played a lot more nickel, a lot more slot, kind of a wherever you need him kind of guy. He's an important guy to have back, and I'm very happy that he's back on this team. Then we have Shaman Moore, most recently in the IFL. If you looked when he got signed, I posted, he's a guy who really just sticks his head in everywhere. That guy, I feel like, especially on running downs, he would be a dude that they would bring in on the slot and everything, because you want to make sure that if they do happen to get to the second level, you have a guy that's going to bring down a running back, and that is Shaman Moore. Then we have Jai Nunn Liddell coming out of a small school. Absolute dog. Go follow him on Instagram. This is a guy who, man, he is jacked, and he makes sure everybody knows it on his Instagram. Go check it out. He posts exercise videos, but he's a dude who can play multiple positions. That was kind of a trend, especially early on with Lionel Vitel's signings of secondary, because he was like only signing secondary, was there are guys who can play multiple positions. Him and Richard Bowens III, the guy right below him, he signed both of them at the same time. Both of them are taller, good-sized corners who can play both safety, corner, and some nickel if you need. That is a big thing that people want. Richard Bowens coming out of an HBCU. Prior to that, he was in the Big 12 at Iowa State. That's a guy I'm excited about. Richard Bowens. I think he was injured going into the draft process, and Lionel Vitel, LV, specifically told me this is a guy that would have been drafted if not for that injury. So he could just be this one season with the Roughnecks and then moving on to the league. We'll see. I'm excited for him. Elijah Rogers, another dude I'm very excited for. Raw talent coming out of Clemson. He never got the playing time he deserved there. Politics in the locker room are ridiculous. But he's got great size. He's got great speed. I already talked to him. He's doing the conditioning that the coaches sent out, the conditioning test they're going to do day one, technically, I guess, day 0 of camp. This is a guy to watch. I think he could have a breakout season. Elijah Rodgers is not only a guy you can get behind, go watch my interview with him, like actually a fantastic human being, but he's very, very young. When you're talking about moving up to the NFL, the guys like him who are coming out, this is their first season pro, 23 years old. If he shows out, if he has good stats, or I guess no stats, because as a corner, you don't want stats against you, right? He could move up to the league because he is a guy who's 1, not vested in the NFL, 2, very young, and 3 is a rising talent. So that's the kind of guy that you would watch to get taken up. You got Colby Richardson, another guy that coming out of LSU, safety corner. The dudes who can play multiple positions, the versatility, it's paramount. It's really everything in these leagues, especially when you start getting injured midway through the season. It's so much better to be able to take a guy who has been playing corner but can move to safety and do that than have to pick up a whole new person, try and figure it out. To have guys like Jai Liddell, Richard Bowens, the third RB3, and Colby Richardson, very helpful. Then we have Isaiah Zuber. And I say kinda, because when I break down the offense, Isaiah is going to be a big person that I talk about because he was signed as a corner, but season 1, he was a wide receiver. Then he went to the Raiders and he played wide receiver and safety. He got both a touchdown catch and an interception in a preseason game. Then he came back season 2 of the Gamblers and he was starting at corner. Then he came in and he was starting at receiver the next game. He could play anywhere. And like I said, versatility. If we have a corner go down, we always know that we have Isaiah Zuber at practice. You say, hey, you're not practicing with the receivers this week. You're going to be practicing with the corners because we're down a guy. He's going to, unless he gets injured, Isaiah Zuber is going to make the team. He's just a freak athlete. Love to have those kind of guys. He's making the team. I'm going to say that right now. Now, last position that we have to talk about before I make my bold game 1 starting positions, starting roster, depth chart, whatever. The safeties, Manny Bunch, season 2 all USFL. Biggest hit in season 1, if you ask me, other than I guess the hit where Henny got his tooth knocked out. Manny Bunch is a head hunting killer. He can come. He helps in the run greatly. He's a great cover guy. Awesome. Javon Hicks coming out of Cincinnati. This is a dude, huge following online. He has great size. And right now, I think he's just one of those dudes who was overlooked in the draft. And he can come in and he's fighting for a day 1 spot, 100%. Then you have Donald Rutledge Jr. If you've watched this show for the last season, you know that I love Donald Rutledge Jr. This is a guy I cannot believe is not in an NFL camp. Dude, he is a dog. He's fantastic in coverage. He's such a hard hitter. He can come off the edge. He can literally line up at outside linebacker and rush the quarterback if you need him to. He can cover the slot. He's that fast. He's plays safety, mostly like strong safety underneath zones. And then, I mean, if you wanted to play corner, I probably think he could play corner. The dude is a dog. He's making the team. But Donald Rutledge Jr., our defense, the only time I really got worried about our defense last year was when he got hurt. So having him back is great. Markel Roby, another small school guy. This is a guy who was overlooked because he's a small school guy. And Lionel Vitale loves those dudes. So bringing him in, he has a pretty decent chance because there's only 4 safeties on the roster. Like I said, some of the corners, Colby Richardson, Richard Bowens, they can play safety, but it helps his chances that he is a safety. That is where he excels at, where he's dominant in. So that helps him a lot. Now, drum roll. Moving on to who I believe will be the week 1 starters. I even made some graphics. Now, let's start in the trenches. Chris Odom. I got his LinkedIn photo in there because I think it's hilarious. Chris, I'm your number 1 fan and you freaking know it. Chris Odom, no brainer. That dude's got to start. Toby Johnson, Olive Sagapolu, no brainer. Those dudes, yeah, Olive was just a dominant force on the best defense last year in the USFL. Toby Johnson, 2-time all USFL. He's just a battering ram. Like he's going to wear out the interior offensive line and demand a lot of double teams, which is going to open it up for Chris Odom and Adam Rodriguez, who I believe will be starting opposite of Chris Odom. These are 2 guys who are specialists when it comes to getting to the quarterback. I do believe that they should be the starters. Then obviously now some players, if they do watch this and they think, why doesn't he think I'm a day 1 starter? It's not that I don't think you're a day 1 starter. I think you will be rotating in a lot because mean, Quan Drake literally said he wants to be able to rotate the entire defensive line out and bring in a whole new one on third down. That's wild because he knows that with all the talent he has, he can start these 4 dudes and then he can rotate them all out, have Reggie Howard, Ethan Westbrooks, Keontae Shad, and Bryson Young run in, and they're going to get at the quarterback almost just as well, and they're going to be fresh. So if you aren't on this graphic, do not think that I think less of you. Think that I believe you are in the rotation, but these are the dudes that I think the first play of the first game are going to be out there on the field. Now, moving up to linebackers, Reuben Foster, no-brainer. The dude is dominant. He calls the defense. I think that Reuben is going to be in there. Kalen Tolson, he was the one linebacker that really didn't rotate much last year. He was in almost every defensive play. He's your guy who's going to make every tackle you need. He gets to the ball. He gets there quick. You need a QB spy. That's the dude. Kalen Tolson is just the reliable one. I also believe that he was the green dot calling plays last season. So he knows the defense. He knows it backwards and forwards. And the consistency, I talk about it in shows all the time. Consistency is huge. So having a guy who understands the defense at that level, very helpful. And that will give him the push to be day one starter, even though they have a bunch of new talent. Then I believe this is my dark horse on this entire roster right now. On this game one starting lineup, I believe Ace Ely will start. I think that when they come out in their base 4-3, play one, Ace Ely, Reuben Foster, and Kalen Tolson will be the linebackers. I do believe that JT Tyler will come in, especially on third downs. He's great in coverage. When they need a coverage guy, I think Ace Ely pulled out, JT Tyler comes in. If Isaiah Pryor's still here, I could see him coming in as well. I think that guys are going to come in game one. I think they're going to play, but these are the dudes that I think first down, you think they're going to run the ball. This is who's in. Now, moving to the slot, Dayan Lake. That dude, Dayan Lake, I'm not totally sure how to say his name. I apologize. Lake. I think he has proved himself last year. Brett Maxey likes the kid. He thinks that he's good, and rightfully so. I think he comes in and he plays slot because that seemed to be where he excelled the most and really showed out last season. Then I think J.J. Johnson, he's been starting the last 3 years for the Houston team in the XFL, USFL. Why wouldn't he start season 4 with the Roughnecks? I think J.J. Johnson will be in play one. Like I said, he's not afraid to make a tackle. He's not afraid to get his nose in there. And then I think Richard Bowens, this is my second dark horse. Ace Ely, maybe a little bit more of a dark horse. Richard Bowens, the third, will be in there. I think he just has the talent. He has the speed. He has the size. It makes sense. Him and J.J. Johnson are a solid starting cornerback duo on the outsides. I think they can cover anybody you put against them, especially week one when we have Jay Adams, when we have Lee Morris. Covering those dudes is going to be big, and having size against them is going to be very important. So I think that JJ and Richard will be those guys. Then Manny Bunch, Donald Rutledge Jr. You can see they're literally in the uniforms they were in last year when they started. Those dudes, I think they might have been the best safety duo while they were both healthy. Why not have them both starting? I think those guys are absolute dogs. And for Markel Roby and who was the other safety? I've already forgotten it. But to have those guys come in and try to compete to take those spots is a humongous ask. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying by week one with a short training camp, you go with what you know. And Manny Bunch and Donald Rutledge, we know that they are dogs, man. That's what we know. So, man, there's a bold prediction. It's bold of me to come in before training camp and say, this is who I predict will be the week one starters. But I need to have another show where I go into the offense, maybe a short show about the specialists. They're starting already. This is cool. And I'm excited. Hold me to it. Keep the receipts. I want to know how right I was when it comes to week one of Houston Roughnecks football. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is February 17th. I'm releasing this today. It's in 8 days, about a week from today, next Saturday. They're having the first meet and greet. Curtis Johnson will be there. Moose Johnston will be there at Rice Stadium. They're doing a stadium tour. You get to pick your seats if you're a season ticket holder. It's going to be very exciting. I'm going to be there. Other people from other news sites are going to be there. I cannot wait. Please, if you have season tickets, show up. Even if you don't show up, it's going to be fun. Curtis Johnson is incredibly nice. Moose Johnston, he has the firmest, biggest handshake, like the largest hands I've ever felt in my life every time I shake his hand. So can't wait for you guys to experience that. Please show up, show out, fill the rig. Very, very excited. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if this is your first episode, subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. I'm always watching, guys. I love to improve the show for you, so let me know. But until then, this has been Roughneck Rundown. I love defense, man.
I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh.